Today, I'm going to walk you through before and afters from various weddings and photo shoots I've delivered over the last few months. Different weddings, different places, different lighting scenarios. But instead of just showing you the final result, I'm going to show you 3 stages. So first is a straight out of a camera. Second is going to be automatic editing with my Imagen profile. And third is going to be final export to my client, so with my manual refinement. Everything that I'm going to show you is going to be a different real weddings I've shot, so you will see my actual editing history on the side. And this is going to be a mix of regular photos, so nothing specifically shot or super curated. I've just selected few images from weddings I've shot this year so I could showcase how I actually work with editing. Now, Imagen is the sponsor of this video, and they are currently running the biggest sale of the year because you can get 50% off of everything from personal profiles to edits and subscriptions, which is insane. You can stack up tons of edits for your next wedding season. So for example, you can get 18,000 edits for a little over $30 a month. And what makes it even more special, you can also buy my personal profile for 50% off, and you also get my full preset pack and my complete editing masterclass, which is over 4 hours of content. That's normally even more expensive just for presets alone and the course. So you are literally getting more for less, plus you get Imagen profile on top of that. That's the Imagen Black Friday deal, and I'll explain exactly how that works in the middle of this video. But first, let me show you what this system actually does and what my before and afters look like. Yeah, so let me start with church images, because churches are usually the most, like the hardest ones to edit, because you never edit them exactly the same way. They usually have mixed lighting and really warm lighting. So look at this. This is straight out of the camera image, okay? Then the first step, this is where Imagen applied my profile, which corrects white balance, exposure, and just add my look to it. And then I did make a few tweaks to this one because it's rather harder image than easier one. I lowered the exposure, I increased the contrast, and I increased exposure back. So you can see me going back and forth a little bit. Then I fixed a little bit of that temperature, changed the angle, and actually I did export this as a image, and then I was like, no, I need to remove that guy. So I removed that guy, and then I exported this image. So this is the final one. So again, this is straight off the camera. This is Imagen. This is my refinement, which is just very subtle change to what Imagen did. One more church image, this one. This is straight out of the camera. This church was actually much easier to work with. As you can see, it's like pretty natural lighting there. So this is what Imagen did to the image. It's pretty much there, like it's 99% there. I just decreased exposure and then increased it back. So it's like almost exactly the same. Did like a little crop because I wasn't cropping with Imagen, and exported the image. So look at this, straight out of the camera, Imagen, my export, my final export to the client. Then let's look at some portraits. So with portraits, it's like, especially with natural lighting, it's just so much easier because, for example, this image, look at this. This is a straight out of the camera image. This is Imagen. This is Imagen with crop. At this time I used the crop with Imagen, and this is my export. I didn't touch anything because that image was already perfect. It's not always the case. I do try to refine my images always to add something from me, but this image was just like perfection. This image also very nice lighting. This is the import, so this is straight out of the camera image. This is what Imagen did. And what I actually did is I slightly changed the temperature, slightly changed the exposure, and exported the image. So again, straight out of the camera, Imagen, my export, which is just slightly less warm. That's also because I tend to change my perspective on the warmth of the images. Also, it's very subjective. I can tell you that probably if I would be editing this image next week, I could maybe make it even warmer. So I feel like Imagen is more consistent than I am, but I still like to have that final touch. And during when I'm editing, I feel a certain feelings about the image, and then I edit this that way. There are some images that do require more adjustments. So for example, this one, this is like a blue hour image. Blue hour portrait, I mean, like Tuscany villa, beautiful, beautiful light, beautiful image, beautiful place. So this straight out of the camera looked like this. So it's just slightly underexposed because I was aiming for something between the silhouettes. I wanted to make sure I have all the details in the sky. So when Imagen applied that profile, because of that warmth of the light, because this is like a sunset light, for me there was like too much of the warmth on their faces and kind of too much contrast. So I reduced the contrast, I increased the exposure, and then I reduced the temperature as well. I cropped the image and then I exported the image. So this, like specifically for portraits, for like more artistic portraits, I do tend to do more to them because I want them to stand out slightly more, or like I want to have more control over it. So here is the import straight out of the camera. This is Imagen automatic editing, and this is my exported final image. This is a kind of the same weddings and the same situation. We were shooting slightly earlier, so that's like probably just before that sunset that you've seen there. The import looks like this, so it's also actually quite a lot of underexposed. This is Imagen. For me, it was also slightly too dark and slightly too much contrast on their faces, so I did increase the exposure, I did lower the contrast, and I did actually push the exposure more, lower the contrast more, cropped a little bit, and that's my final image. So as you can see, this is the straight out of the camera, this is Imagen, and this is my final image. Then we have some ceremony in like the rather harsh light. This is the ceremony. And these were quite easy to edit. So for example, this image is just like import, Imagen, little exposure boost, that's it. Okay, next image, import, Imagen, that's it. I didn't have to do anything. Here, slightly more challenging, more harsh light. If I have more harsh light, I tend to lower contrast even more on my images because I just want to reduce those shadows on the faces. My profile and my preset is pretty punchy, it's pretty contrasty. So on like very contrasty scenes in terms of a light, I tend to refine it slightly more than what my profile does. So this is the imported image straight out of the camera. This is Imagen. And then my changes was like exposure, contrast, just tiny bit. You can see like there's not much. And then I was removing Dan, my second shooter, up there. So that's the final export. So that's straight out of the camera. That's Imagen. And that's my export. You can see those changes are very, very subtle and very, very minimal. The more artistic images, they do require more work. So that image in my head, I was going for that backlit look. I was going for those drinks to be visible in that image. So that's the import. So as you can see, I shot it quite tilted. Like I think I was like leaning over the bed that was there. They're like in between the bed and the window. Like this scene looks epic, but I gotta tell you, it was just so tight and so cramped. So I was like leaning like that to get the shot. So Imagen applied. It's pretty good, but for me, I needed to work on that shadows part and that crop angle just to get it to look the way I want. So that's my final image. So straight out of the camera, Imagen, my refinement, very subtle. And as you can see, my automatic editing by Imagen gets me 95% there. And probably if I wouldn't be so picky, I could deliver them straight out of Imagen to the gallery. So for example, look at this. This is getting ready photo. So this one I edited manually because this was one of my sneak peeks that I delivered on the next day. So I just quickly edited this. So here you can see a different process. I imported this with my preset, my regular preset. Then I change the temperature, exposure, contrast, temperature, then I exported, but then I refined it a little bit more. Then I exported this once again when I was delivering the gallery. So that's the final image that I delivered. And here, the next image is like exactly the same scene, but edited with Imagen. And look at this, it's just import, Imagen, that's it. I haven't touched it. And the result is identical. So like all that, this is my manual work that I had to do to get to the point directly from my preset look to the final image, and Imagen did it in just one step, and it just took it a second. That's just the beauty of Imagen, that I don't have to do this manual, the basic manual editing, correcting white balance, applying my preset, applying the contrast, applying everything to 1,000 of images. It will do it automatically for me. I just upload my images, I click edit with my profile. It does cost like a 5 cent per image, but now with the 50% off, it's going to be at 2.5, like what, 2.5 cent? Is it a thing? 2.5 cent? But yeah, it's going to be something around 2-3 cents per image. So you can edit 1,000 images for like $30, which is entire wedding. And it'll get you 95% there. And of course, if you're like more into manual editing, adding masks, generative removal stuff, and so on, you can just do it manually afterwards, and it will just take you much less time to finalize the entire gallery. The cool part is that they recently announced that they're adding automatic exit sign removal. So like imagine that, like having Imagen editing out all of your exit signs that are ruining all of our images in those hotel venues. So you see what the system does. The Black Friday deal is amazing. Imagen is running 50% off of everything right now. My profile being normally $149. Starting today, it's $75. But here's what makes it special. If you go with my link, I'll put it in the description. I'll pin it in the comments. Number 1, you get my Imagen profile. Number 2, you get my preset pack, entire preset pack. So more presets, not just my main preset, but also my extra presets, my flat magic presets, like black and white presets. And then you also get the full editing masterclass, so over 4 hours of time. And then Imagen subscriptions are also 50% off. So if you're not already using Imagen, your first month is going to be 50% off. And if you're using Imagen, you can go for like a subscription for like 18,000 or 36,000 photos at 50%. So you can be set for the next season already. The deal ends December 2nd. Link is in the description. And if you want to see my entire workflow, how I edit the entire wedding, make sure to watch this video now.